The road winds like a serpent through the towering pines, their skeletal branches clawing at the sky as dusk settles in. A lone car, its headlights cutting weakly through the thickening fog, rumbles into the forgotten village of Black Hollow. The air is damp and heavy, smelling of wet earth and something faintly metallic, like old blood on the wind. The protagonist, a weary traveler, perhaps a journalist chasing a cold case, a grieving relative searching for answers, or just someone who took a wrong turn, steps out onto the uneven cobblestones of the village square. The place feels frozen in time, sagging timber-framed houses with darkened windows, an inn with a flickering neon sign that buzzes like an insect, and a handful of villagers who pause in their chores to stare with guarded, knowing eyes. No one offers a greeting. Instead, their gazes linger just a second too long before they turn away, as if the newcomer is already marked. The mist curls around their ankles, unnaturally thick, seeming to cling like grasping fingers before retreating. At the local tavern, where the firelight does little to dispel the gloom, the bartender slides a drink across the counter without a word. When the traveler asks about lodging, the man's jaw tightens. "You don't want to stay," he mutters. "Not after dark." A hush falls over the room. Outside, the mist presses against the windows, swirling as if listening. And then, from the shadows of a corner booth, an old woman with milky eyes leans forward. "They always come," she whispers, her voice like dry leaves, "just like the others before." The traveler laughs it off, just superstition, just the ramblings of isolated folk. But as the door creaks shut behind them and they step back into the night, the mist coils tighter around the village, swallowing the edges of the road. Somewhere in the distance a child's laugh echoes, or was it a scream? The wind carries it away before they can be sure, and so it begins. The traveler wakes to the sound of rain tapping against the window of the dimly lit inn. The room is cold, the fire in the hearth long dead, and the air carries the scent of damp wood and something else. Something old, like the pages of a book left to rot. Downstairs, the murmur of hushed voices drifts up through the floorboards. The tavern is nearly empty when they descend, save for a few locals hunched over their drinks, their faces half hidden in the flickering lantern light. The bartender from the night before is gone, replaced by a gaunt man with hollow cheeks who barely glances up as the traveler approaches. The silence is heavy, suffocating, until the creak of a chair breaks it. An old man sits alone in the corner, his gnarled hands wrapped around a steaming mug. His eyes, sharp and too knowing, lock onto the traveler. "You're still here," he says, not as a question, but an accusation. The traveler forces a smile, brushing off the unease coiling in their gut. "Just passing through. Though I wouldn't mind knowing why everyone seems so eager to get rid of me." The old man exhales, a slow, rattling breath. Not eager, afraid. He leans forward, lowering his voice. "You think we're unfriendly? You think we don't like outsiders?" His fingers tap the table, a nervous rhythm. "We've seen what happens to them." A draft slithers through the room, making the lanterns sway. Shadows stretch and twist along the walls. The traveler scoffs, but their pulse quickens. "Seen what?" The old man doesn't answer right away. Instead, he reaches into his coat and slides a yellowed photograph across the table. A group of hikers, smiling, arms around each other, dated 20 years prior. "They came, same as you, asked questions, didn't listen when we told them not to go into the woods." His finger stabs at the faces, one by one. Gone. All of them. The mist took 'em. The traveler picks up the photo, studying it. Something about the way the trees loom in the background makes their skin prickle. "You expect me to believe some weather phenomenon?" It's not weather, the old man snaps. His voice drops to a whisper. It's alive, it watches, it waits, and when it gets thick enough. He nods toward the window, where the mist presses against the glass like a starving thing. That's when it feeds. A log shifts in the hearth with a sound like a muffled scream. The traveler shakes their head, pushing the photo away. Right, thanks for the ghost story. The old man leans back, his face grim. You'll believe it soon enough. Outside, the mist thickens, swallowing the last of the daylight. Somewhere in the distance, a branch snaps, and the village holds its breath. The night had settled over Black Hollow like a burial shroud, heavy and suffocating. The traveler sat alone in their room at the inn, the old man's warning echoing in their mind like a half-remembered nightmare. Outside, the mist coiled through the streets, thicker now, almost purposeful in its movements. A sharp knock at the door startled them. It was the bartender from the first night, his face drawn tight with something between anger and fear. Your friend, he spat. The loud one from the bar earlier. He's gone. The traveler's blood ran cold. There had been another outsider, a brash backpacker who'd laughed too loud at the villagers' superstitions, who'd slammed his whiskey down and declared he wasn't afraid of any spooky fog. They followed the bartender downstairs, where a small crowd had gathered in hushed panic near the inn's back door. The door stood ajar, letting in tendrils of mist that curled along the floorboards like searching fingers. A single boot lay overturned just beyond the threshold, its laces still neatly tied. He went out for a smoke not 20 minutes ago, muttered a pale-faced woman, clutching her shawl tighter. I heard him laugh at first. Then, nothing. Just silence. The traveler grabbed a lantern and stepped outside, against the bartender's grabbing hand and the villagers' hissed warnings. The mist swallowed the light after only a few feet, reducing the world to a swirling gray void. Their own breath sounded too loud in the unnatural stillness. Hey! They called, voice cracking. Only the mist answered, pressing closer, damp against their skin. Then, a sound. Not from ahead, but from above. A wet, sliding noise from the rooftop. The traveler jerked the lantern upward just in time to see something pale and impossibly long withdraw over the eaves. The thatch rustled where it had been. From somewhere deep in the mist came a whisper that wasn't quite a voice, more like the sound of wind through dead grass forming words. Come see. The lantern slipped from numb fingers, smashing on the stones. In the sudden darkness, something moved in the mist, not around it, but through it, parting the vapor like a swimmer through water. The traveler stumbled back inside, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. The villagers' faces told them everything. This wasn't the first time. Wouldn't be the last. And outside, the mist grew thicker still. Dawn came reluctantly to Black Hollow, the sun straining to pierce the mist that clung to the village like a sickness. The traveler hadn't slept. The image of that pale, elongated thing slipping over the rooftop played behind their eyelids every time they blinked. The backpacker was gone, vanished as completely as if he had never existed, save for that single abandoned boot by the door. The innkeeper refused to meet their eyes at breakfast. The other villagers had withdrawn into silence, speaking only in terse murmurs when necessary. It was the old woman from the tavern, the one with the milky eyes, who finally broke the stalemate. She appeared at the traveler's table like a specter, her gnarled fingers pressing a rusted key into their palm. The church, she whispered, her breath sour with age and secrets. The answers you seek are in the basement. But hurry. The mist knows when it's being watched. The village church was a crumbling husk of stone and rotting wood, its steeple leaning precariously as if ashamed of what lay beneath it. The key turned with a scream of protesting metal, and the door groaned open to reveal a darkness so thick it felt alive. The traveler descended the steps carefully, the wood sagging beneath their weight, the air growing colder with each step. The basement was a reliquary of horrors. Yellowed newspaper clippings papered the walls, each one detailing disappearances spanning decades. Hikers, travelers, even villagers who had dared to question the mist too loudly. A large map of the region was pinned to a central table, marked with dates and locations where people had vanished, all connected by a pattern that radiated outward from Black Hollow like the spokes of a spider's web. But it was the journal that made their blood freeze. Bound in cracked leather, its pages brittle with age, the journal belonged to a priest who had served the village over a century ago. His entries started with concern: strange mists, livestock gone missing, children speaking of the pale people in the woods. Then, desperation. "It is not fog," he had scrawled in frantic script. "It is a veil, and behind it, they are waiting." The final entry was a single sentence, the ink blotted as if by shaking hands. "God forgive me. I have fed it to keep them safe." A floorboard creaked above them. The traveler whirled, heart hammering. The church had been empty when they entered, but now, footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving toward the basement stairs, and outside, through the high, grime-covered windows, the mist pressed close, watching, waiting. The air inside the church basement turned to ice as the footsteps grew louder. The traveler's breath came in ragged bursts, their fingers tightening around the priest's journal like a lifeline. The single oil lamp they had brought with them flickered wildly, casting monstrous shadows that writhed across the walls. Above, the footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs. A long silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then, creak. The first stair groaned under an unseen weight. The traveler's pulse roared in their ears. They had seconds, maybe less. With a desperate glance around, their eyes landed on a rusted iron grate in the corner of the basement. A forgotten coal chute, perhaps, or an old root cellar passage. It was just wide enough to squeeze through. They moved without thinking. The journal was shoved into their coat as they wrenched the grate open, its hinges shrieking in protest. Behind them, the basement door swung open with a slow, deliberate finality. Cold air rushed in, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something older, something hungry. The traveler didn't look back. They plunged into the narrow tunnel, the darkness swallowing them whole. The passage was tight, the walls pressing in like a living thing, but they crawled forward on hands and knees, their nails scraping against stone and packed dirt. Behind them, something followed, not footsteps now, but a slow, wet dragging, like flesh on stone. Then ahead, a sliver of light. The tunnel opened into the hollow beneath the church's graveyard, where the mist coiled between the headstones like a nest of serpents. The traveler stumbled into the open air, gasping, their clothes torn and filthy. The village lay ahead, but the mist was thicker now, swirling with purpose. Shapes moved within it. Tall, too tall, their limbs stretching and contracting like shadows at the edge of vision. The journal burned in their pocket. They knew the truth now. The mist wasn't just alive, it was fed. The priest's final entry made sense. The disappearances weren't random. The village had been sacrificing outsiders for generations, trading lives for survival. And now, the mist wanted its due. A whisper curled through the graveyard, threading between the headstones. Stay. The traveler ran. The village was empty, doors locked, windows shuttered. Even the inn was barred against them. The mist surged forward, cutting off every escape, herding them toward the woods where the trees stood like sentinels. The shapes within the mist grew clearer now, pale, elongated figures with too many joints, their mouths gaping holes of darkness. The traveler's back hit a tree. Nowhere left to go. The mist closed in. And then, a choice. The journal tumbled to the ground as the traveler reached into their pocket, fingers closing around the old woman's key, the one she had pressed into their hand, the one that had unlocked the church, the one that even now felt unnaturally warm. With a scream that was half prayer, half defiance, they thrust the key into the heart of the mist. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, light. A searing, golden burst erupted from the key, scattering the mist like smoke. The figures shrieked, their forms unraveling, their voices fading into the wind. The traveler collapsed to their knees as the last of the mist retreated, slithering back into the earth like a wounded beast. Dawn broke over Black Hollow, weak but real. The traveler was alone in the woods, the key now cold and blackened in their hand. The village would never speak of what happened. The mist would return. But for now, silence. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.